always try to do things that are oriented towards the families. That's the main focus that we do, is family entertainment.
Crash! There's the man you can talk to.
He said he's got somebody coming.
I have the carnival guy coming. Okay.
Dude, when you came up, we thought you were the one he was looking for.
As the first of the Blue Angel jets flew into the Hibbing Airport, my heart was in my throat. To watch their high-flying maneuvers and think that I was going to get a chance to go with them was exciting, but also terrifying. My adventure started with a briefing shortly after the Blue Angels advance team landed.
This is to release the Navy and the Blue Angels of any personal injury, damage, or loss of life during flight.
Okay, so now I knew if I died, it was my own responsibility. I signed, and then got some instruction on what to expect.
He's going to put the HUD, which is the heads-up display, on your left EDI, and that's going to have your altitude, your speed, and G's that you're pulling, or the highest G you pulled.
Next, I suited up in my Navy blue flight suit, then headed for the cockpit. Crew Chief Peter Mendelari strapped me in with last-minute instructions.
I have to know that this one lets the seat go and...
Separate your seat from your harness.
Okay, all right.
So you're... Okay.
But of course, we're not going to have to use those.
No.
So now I knew how to eject. Then the pilot, Lieutenant Rich Young, joined me in the front cockpit, and we were ready. Sort of.
I don't know if I'm ready.
You mean okay, son?
Okay.
And then we were off, and boy, were we off. Within about 30 seconds of takeoff, Lieutenant Young pulled the nose of the jet straight up, and we went ballistic. In the air, we did rolls, loops, slow speed and high speed passes, all kinds of maneuvers. They warned me that a lot of people get sick or pass out. I managed to retain consciousness and enjoy the flight. But in the process, we pulled 5 Gs, making my weight 5 times what it normally is, creating incredible pressure on my body. During their show maneuvers, the Blue Angel pilots pull up to 7.5 Gs. With that amount of pressure, they have to be in great shape and are required to work out with weights on a regular schedule. I managed to survive and even got a chance to do a little flying myself.
I'd say maybe half the people get sick up there, and you did great. You in fact, did your own roll, and you also did your own loop. You're flying the aircraft there.
Flying with the Blue Angels is like nothing I've ever experienced before and expect I'll never experience again. In Hibbing, Barbara Riles, News 6.
They don't fly in, they drive in, they come camping. And they will spend a week getting here and perhaps a week or even 2 weeks going back out of the state. So when you have a group like this, and Duluth and the convention have been very successful in getting them in, the impact across the state is significant.
We are in deep trouble.
Deep trouble, more than one way.
Yeah, we have to take a boat to get to our boat. Our dock is underwater.
The Maid of Iowa is an excursion boat, much like the Vista Star here in the Twin Ports. Its business is based solely on sightseeing trips on the Mississippi. But after weeks of flooding, the Coast Guard has banned travel on the river, leaving a $1.5 million investment at a standstill.
Our accountant and business plan called for $1.5 million just excursion boat per year. And it looked pretty good down there because kind of Nauvoo, the city was going to put in a new dock for us. And they have 500,000 people in 100 days come there. And that really looked pretty good to us.
Castard and 20 other investors from Douglas County thought they had a sure bet with the explosion of the waterborne tourist trade. They tried to pitch the project to Superior, but settled on Fort Madison, Iowa. Now they aren't even sure if their sure bet will survive.
Trees and big dumpsters, like the dumpsters they have in the business places, are floating down the Mississippi River. I mean, big stuff is floating, and that could hit our boat and do some damage. So we're nervous as can be that something could happen.
And it's not just the boat's hull that could be damaged. Investors' pocketbooks are being hit as well. All the owners can do is pay for expenses and wait for next year.
It hurts $1.5 million. Plus, we have to pay $2,100 a month insurance. And we have to keep a captain on board in case the Coast Guard wants the boat moved and inspected and stuff like this. So it's costing us dearly, and it's going to have to sit till spring.
In Superior, Derek Hines, News 6.
Gay in the 90s, equal by law.
And when I start thinking of wearing that lesbian button, I get really frightened. The places I am throughout the day and people's reactions. So yes, in reality, it's still frightening.
Despite winning protections against discrimination in education, employment, and housing, some members of Minnesota's homosexual population are still hesitant to come out. Even heterosexuals who show support of gays and lesbians are feeling the backlash of hatred. A local example, Superior Mayor Herb Berkson.
Herb Berkson, just after he signed a proclamation thanking the gays and lesbians of the community for supporting children in whatever they're doing, he received a number of threatening letters, and one was actually a threat to his life.
So while the gay and lesbian community has gained ground on the legal front, they expect resistance to see those statutes enforced. And there are still questions as to how much the amendment will affect the everyday lives of homosexuals.
The test is whether or not it will cover marriage. If it doesn't cover marriage, how can it cover insurance and loans and things like that married couples get more recognition from?
Those questions are not going to make employers happy, and they're not going to make a lot of other folks happy. I don't have the answers for those right now, and I think that we're going to see a lot of litigation come out of this amendment.
So do a lot of people. Many are waiting to see what changes, if any, the new legislation will bring, and what changes the amendment itself will undergo should legal challenges take place. Lawmakers altered the amendment to stop short of endorsing same-sex marriages and working with children, but this could change.
The legislators in Minnesota who put forth the law to begin with are hoping that the amendments to the amendment will eventually be null and void.
But any change can expect opposition, and leading the pack among those disagreeing with the amendment are various religious groups, many of which deny any rights to the gay and lesbian community. It's a familiar argument between familiar foes. In Duluth, Stephanie Guadian, News 6.
Of the year. Zupsik hits it pretty well right down the left field line, hit well and into the left field seats, gone. A home run for Zupsik. And Calderon out to left center field. Munoz going over. Called off at the last minute by Mack, who just did make the catch. Tagging and scoring is Greenwell.
In the air. If those feet were planted on the ground, might have had some serious damage. Just able to get up in time, and no double play there.
to renovate and restore the street back to good condition from literally building to building, sidewalk, curb, gutter, street.
This gang of railroad workers in Cloquet today look more like a chain gang, complete with T-shirts bearing the words POW, prisoner of work. They're protesting a Burlington Northern policy, which requires them to work hundreds of miles away from home, even if there's work available closer to where they live. The union says at least 1,000 workers fall into that category, including Dale Mischke of North Dakota.
You know, it's hard to raise a family and be away from home, and I have 4 kids at home, and my wife has to work out. She communicates 35 miles of town, and you have to leave the kids at home, and otherwise I could be at home working in a job at home continually.
I mean, all these people have families back home. The gang that's up here right now is probably better off than most because they're only 300 to 400 miles from home. We have some gangs that the employees and our members are up to 800 and more miles away from home.
Bobby says the dispute stems back to 1991 when the federal government ended a national railroad strike and forced the union to accept their recommendations, one of which forces employees to accept jobs as they're assigned, no matter where they are, and seniority or requests are not taken into consideration.
Once they're on this gang, whether they're bid to it or they're recalled to it from furlough, they cannot get off the gang by bidding and using their seniority. Once you're here for the duration of the work season, which is got to be at least 6 months.
Today's protest comes on the heels of weeks of a nationwide informational picket, during which railroad employees passed out literature calling on the Clinton administration not to intervene should they strike. Union workers say they have a number of serious issues they're protesting and don't want the government to get involved. In Cloquet, Amy Rutledge, News 6.
Traditionally, the Ice Capades have an extraordinary economic impact on the Duluth area because they rehearse here. And several $1 million go into the rehearsing and production of a show, and supplies, and obviously accommodations and other expenses for the employees when they're here for that 2-month span. So it's kind of a traditional boost in visitor income that the city is kind of relies on.
This is just 2 through 4. But there are different series of
What folks will see if they come to the show is a new generation of environmentally on the ground to new types of processing equipment that is more environmentally friendly.
there's a chapter here in Duluth that is seeking to do that. We wanted to just come alongside them and encourage them and help, hopefully give them a lot of money to continue what they're doing.
Here's James Worthy with a look of a new generation, Star Trek, the next generation to be exact. We caught up with Worthy at Paramount Studios where he was fulfilling a long-time dream to be on the syndicated show. Worthy's playing a Klingon in an upcoming episode. Makeup for the part took a couple of hours to complete. While Worthy felt great to be in costume, he couldn't escape from being one of the NBA's
Five Great Lakes. We have the largest freshwater lake in the world right here, and I believe we've got a responsibility to the rest of the world to keep that in as clean working order as possible.
Secondly, it's certainly for a lot of people, and as well as for myself, it's a lot of regret that it's taken 300 days to get to this point, largely because of the attendant publicity in this case. Nobody's ever going to understand all the back and forth and blood tests and the way in which her lawyer just, I mean, I can't even begin to describe the way he handled this case. But, you know, it shouldn't have to take 300 days.
You're handling a lot of money for the government. That's basically what we're doing. I mean, it's not that we don't make money on gasoline. But we make about the same as what we made in 1972, and that's 20 years ago.
Ships about 100 million feet, or a third of their production, into the issues with you today. First issue has to
ought to be part of it. The notion was that the middle class is being priced out of higher education, and whether it's 18-year-olds or it's 35-year-olds who want to come back in, they're being priced out of the system.
I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream that one day, even the state of Mississippi, a state sweltering with the heat of injustice, sweltering with the heat of oppression, will be transformed into an oasis of freedom and justice. I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today. its vicious racists, with its governor having his lips dripping with the words of interposition and nullification. One day right there in Alabama, little black boys and black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and white girls as sisters and brothers. I have a dream today. In every hamlet, from every state and every city, we will be able to speed up that day when all of God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, will be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual, free at last, free at last, thank God Almighty, we are free at last. Police brutality. You have been the veterans of creative suffering. Continue to work with the faith that unearned suffering is redemptive. Go back to Mississippi. Go back to Alabama. Go back to South Carolina. Go back to Georgia. Go back to Louisiana. Go back to the slums and ghettos of our northern cities, knowing that somehow this situation can and will be changed. Let us not wallow in the valley of despair. I say to you today, my friend, I still have a dream. It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream.
And we're here to bring the church and the gospel to George Mix.
So, the job is to...
You don't need to have disciplined policies written down or in any family, and so in a relatively small school you don't have to have disciplined policies that are that hard and fast either.
Your name, and then Angela's, and then you have to do the order jobs.
I thought you were checking me.
Definitely postponing some of the plans they had, and it really hasn't impacted us greatly yet, but if it continues, it certainly is going to impact us and negatively on our business. We're anxious to see them work together and get the thing going.
They were found safely camped on an island known as Boy Scout Island in Island Lake. Due to inclement weather that was approaching, all 3 campers decided to come back to shore.
Oh, you must be another truck driver, huh?
Now that cloud has changed to a storm of doubt and mistrust by the general public.
We in this caucus are like a crew on a spaceship under attack by an enemy alien force.
They came to select a new speaker, but time after time, the topic turned to the problems which that person must somehow try to solve.
I love you dearly, Alan, but the first mistake I saw was when an individual wasn't honest with the press.
Alan Welly served as a reminder of the blunders of PhoneGate, and he saw the man who had already replaced Welly as majority leader go on to become the new speaker designate. Irv Anderson has a reputation as a hard-nosed partisan, but tonight he insisted he's changed.
I say look at my new record, the new Irv. Well, he's very mellow, very kindly, but at times stubborn.
Anderson promised ethics reform and added,
"This time we mean it."
He says his caucus understands the voters' demands for change. And when pressed for an example of how he'll respond, he said,
"We're going to conduct better committee hearings."
The DFLers know they desperately need to improve their image with voters. But one tactic begun tonight is more negative than positive. Many members were wearing buttons which read, "Arnie Murphed me for millions." An obvious attempt to simply divert voter attention to the governor's problems. Dennis Stauffer, KARE 11 News, St. Paul.
Can you help you, Sharon? Okay, can somebody else come up here?
At one time he was kind of, he didn't know what he did.
As far as lobbying. So I'm curious what your feeling is here on the outcome of this whole thing.
I think if NAFTA had been put to a vote in the House the day before we adjourned for August, it would have lost. I don't know what has happened in the interim. It'll be interesting Wednesday when the House reconvenes to see what my colleagues think about the agreement. but I rather doubt that much has changed. I suspect that if NAFTA were voted on in the House this coming week, it would lose. The Senate may be a different picture. To proceed with this project, and they're willing to move ahead. It needs to be rethought somewhat, but not totally, but it has to be put together on a sound economic basis.
Optimism for the Airbus project reached a peak in early 1992 when Northwest and state and local agencies broke ground. Headlines about the airline's near bankruptcy wiped that out, but today it returned, at least a little.
Optimistic, very, very realistically optimistic that the maintenance facilities will be built. It will be a smaller facility to start with because Northwest has downsized its fleet. But looking at other options, bringing in other airlines that have A320s to conduct their maintenance.
Congressman Jim Oberstar says several other airlines are interested, but first some detail work needs to be done. Financial details described as minor must be worked out, including a payback plan acceptable to the new financially restructured Northwest. And all the government agencies must sign off, although Oberstar says sticky legislative involvement can probably be avoided.
Given what has taken place with the concessions from the unions, the restructuring of finances, and the amortization schedule, the financial interests who have the most directly at stake have given their commitment.
The Duluth base will likely be half the size originally proposed. Groundbreaking at Hibbing will be delayed until after the Duluth base is built. The most optimistic beginning for all of this would be spring of 1994. In Duluth, Dave Jench, News 6.
Several years ago concerning sludge for that very, very, very reason. We didn't want that stuff here in our township.
There's dozens of new faces at the ABC Child Development Center this fall. At least half of the 34 toddlers and preschoolers are here for the first time. And the center's director, Carol Kopp, says it takes a little while for everyone to get settled in.
Hectic because we're changing people. We're changing, like a lot of kids are going to school and there's a lot of new children starting, people who haven't been here for the summer coming back. So it's like reacquainting everybody to the program, reacquainting everybody to back into childcare.
That's not unusual. The start of the school year is the peak time for childcare providers. Parents who may have relied on older children to care for younger siblings during the summer months are now scrambling to find other alternatives.
My computers aren't going to match up with the criteria of care you're looking for with the providers that fit that criteria that have vacancies.
Mary Bjorklund matches working parents with child care providers available in the 7-county Arrowhead region. There are 475 licensed child care facilities in the city of Duluth alone. But Bjorklund is quick to point out that just because a provider is licensed doesn't mean they're good. That's why it's important for parents to do research before placing their child.
Treating it like a job interview is perfect. You have everything listed right in front of you that you would like to ask that provider, and be sure you do, because this is the hardest decision you are ever going to have to make, because you're leaving your baby, your child, with a complete stranger that you know nothing about except other people's opinions.
Here are some things parents should look for. Is the facility safe? Things like, are stairs blocked off? Is there a fire alarm system in place? And stay and observe how staff members respond to the children. Do they communicate at eye level? Are there activities for the children to do? And don't hesitate to ask for references. Bjorklund admits providers for infants and after-school kids are scarce, and finding them may require some hard work. But she stresses there are always options for parents when it comes to finding the best possible care for their child. In Duluth, Amy Rutledge, News 6.
You'd like to think there isn't, but you know, during the war years, things, you know, lots of things went on, and I hope there isn't, you know, because I don't want that stuff in our lake.
Moving on here, so it corrects for the offset out to the target. So when we firm involved in a Challenger, some of the Challenger.
Yeah,
work? Okay,
yeah, I was personally involved in it.
You were.
Yeah.
What a remarkable feat to recover as much as.
This is how the city of Duluth hopes to clear up any confusion and win over some opponents of the proposed outlet mall on Duluth's waterfront. 1,000 brochures stating what the city says are the facts about the $15.8 million project.
Yes, it is. It's very frustrating, and like I say, once people have the information, they generally support it. But we've got, you know, thousands of people have signed petitions against this. Not really having all of the information, just having little bits and pieces of it, and some of it's not quite accurate.
Because he sees that public sentiment is against us, what he says is he labels that as misinformation, and I just don't think that's true.
Even on a day when Mayor Doty tried to clear up the confusion, there was controversy. The mayor spent part of his day showing members of the media, through the use of orange cones, exactly where the one-story mall on the waterfront would be built, no closer than 450 feet from the water's edge. Doty says another common misconception is that Bayfront Festival Park will be affected by the project. He says 5 new acres of park will be created, and it won't cost taxpayers a dime.
So I think the mayor stating that those opposed to the mall in this location are not aware of the facts is wrong.
Robert Carlson is a leading opponent of the project.
People are aware of the facts. It's been in the newspaper, it's been on the news. It's not like every Duluthian is a dumbbell.
Carlson and other opponents want the city to turn the area into a park, but Doty claims the city doesn't have the funds, and he fears if the mall project doesn't go through, the land's current owner will use it for industrial development.
Another thing is he's tried to portray the fact that down on the waterfront they're going to be building some kind of smokestacks and industries down there. I considered that a scare tactic.
Whether misconception or fact, one thing is clear. The public will be hearing a lot more about Bayfront Landing and the outlet mall before anything is decided. In Duluth, Amy Rutledge, News 6.
This started out because we watched some video footage on another county doing a search, and we wondered what kind of equipment they had. So we thought if we got together, promoted better training, and kind of opened up lines of communication between rescue units, we'd find out what works for them and what works for us, and back and forth.
There's the corner where that post is located. The road itself is...
It's as if, for even a short moment, time stands still. Say what you will about progress, there's something comforting about seeing the past kept alive. In contrast to the crowd's confusion and brashness of the typical fair, an old-time harvest festival makes for a more relaxed and enjoyable afternoon. There are plenty of animals to look at and pet if you're brave enough. Our favorite is the peacock. I wonder why. And there are classic cars. The car owners we talk to say they'll take this over a big-time car show any day because of the people.
Talk with the owners of the cars and stuff, you know, and it just seems like a lot friendlier atmosphere and stuff, you know. So this car show is really nice. yeah, here, I like this one.
The conversation here is more meaningful, too. Instead of dodging people badgering you to knock down bottles, you can debate the merits of the 1965 Mustang versus the 64.5. Try to discern the difference between the 1929 Model A and the 1931, or envy the harvest from a neighbor's garden if yours stayed underwater this year. As for hobbies, no racquetball or pleasure boating for these folks. Restoring gasoline engines is more their speed.
Of course, I've been a mechanic all my life, so it interests me anyway. And it's kind of nice to see something run from the past.
And maybe restoring bigger contraptions is more fun. Combines have been around since the 1950s, but despite the extra work, this threshing machine still has a nostalgic appeal.
Just to know how they used to do it, it's simpler times, simpler ways.
And for many here, remembering the simpler ways is part of that elusive quality time we all try to find for our children, and a way to preserve knowledge along with the artifacts.
You get a lot of old-timers, they'll come here and they'll reminisce, but yet they'll give you, the younger guys, a lot of pointers that were lost years and years ago.
It may not be long before a more simple way of life is forgotten. The games played at this festival aren't part of daily life anymore, and the skills used here are fading. The first tractor I ever drove was a Farmall H, and I was happy to find 3 here, but next year it might only be 2. And we're reminded here of what horsepower really means. Our 20th century has taken us from stagecoaches to space shuttles within the span of a single lifetime. Lest we forget and the memories grow dim, this is the place to keep those ties to the past. Now is the time to hang on.
General knowledge is being lost every year when somebody passes away, and just to keep it going. And I farm with horses and the tractors, and I do it for a living, and just those little hints is what I'm looking at finding. So maybe down the years I can pass it on to the next generation.
In Palo, Minnesota, Derek Hines, News 6. PRC Engineering of New York designed a pipeline system for the Western Lake Superior Sanitary District in 1978 that included so-called experimental pipes made of concrete and other materials. Just 3 years later, the sanitary district made repeated repairs to much of that pipeline, which had begun to decay. Eventually, the entire line was replaced with new steel pipe at a cost of over $5 million. That forced the district to ask the legislature for aid and increase sewer rates, a problem district officials say has occurred elsewhere in the country.
I know that there have been similar problems now that we've discovered through the last several years. We have replaced it with ductile iron pipe, which is much more certain, much more reliable. And so we've replaced all of that section of pipe plus some of the additional stuff down near the river.
The suit filed in 1986 named PRC Engineering and several contracting and pipeline supply companies involved in the project as defendants. All the remaining companies have been dropped from the suit. PRC is now the lone defendant. The WLSSD says it's confident it will recover the cost of the pipeline replacement.
We obviously think we've got a good case. We wouldn't have pursued it this far if we didn't think we had a good case, and we just trust that the system now will give us a fair award based on the facts that we're going to present during the case.
An 8-member jury was selected to hear the highly technical case today. Arguments are expected to last 2 to 3 weeks. In Duluth, Derek Hines, News 6.
Thank everybody for coming. Media, thank you.
We're really excited that you're going to have a staff person like Randy.
The late night parties and things like that. And but since the police force has been here, I've noticed that there isn't the racing around late at night, and there aren't the kids out late at night vandalizing. So it already has made a difference.
pleased to announce today actually two effective ways of delivering care. And consistent with the mission, we felt that having a Department of Family Medicine was really, so to speak, putting our money where our mouth was. We're about training rural family physicians, and we thought having a Department of Family Medicine was consistent with that and gave the proper message to our students and the community.
So if we move quickly, we can do this. And I'm sure the administration will do that because it's a top priority, just as it is of mine for street improvement, it is also the mayor's.
Rent a room at the Edgewater Hotel and you might feel like you're back in school. Over 40 UMD students are living at the hotel indefinitely because of a housing shortage on campus. The university counts on a certain percentage of students to opt for off-campus housing, living with friends or renting apartments. So, based on enrollment projections, campus housing is intentionally overbooked.
Campus housing is increased in number of occupants by about 100. And we have 100 additional freshmen on campus. And the university made the commitment this year to find temporary housing for those students until space in our permanent housing became available.
Until that space becomes available, the students are stuck.
You don't get to meet nearly as many people. We have, I guess right now there's like 15 to 20 of us left here. And it's not, when you're in the dorms, you meet a lot more people.
I probably would have rather been at the dorms, although I do like having a bathroom just to my roommate and myself. But other than that, I think I'd rather be at the dorms because you get to meet a lot more people and get a lot more acquainted with school.
Meanwhile, plans are in the works to construct a new apartment building on campus, but it won't open until the fall of 1995. Unfortunate timing, but there is no solution.
Well, we have to base our construction of new facilities on enrollment projections because with our campus housing situation, all of our budget and construction is based on or paid through our rental revenues.
In the meantime, students will keep making the commute from class to their hotel until every UMD student finds a permanent home in an apartment or on campus. And sorry, there's no room service. In Duluth, Derek Hunt, News 6.
They're cutting the cake, so we'll break this railing up.
We don't know what our hospitalization, if we're going to have to pay money back, going back to the first of the year, or what our vacation. It's all up in the air right now for 1993, never mind 1994.
Here's my background. I was a college professor. I don't know if I should have
giving to the public answers on all of these things. And think about this, ladies and gentlemen, but I will predict that I will be the Republican candidate for governor come June of 1994. I will have the party endorsement. Until 1982, then I ran for the legislature in 1982, and of being the only Republican to have ever represented St. Pete is a total fiasco. Total fiasco. It did not help the situation at all. We need substantially lower property taxes.
A lone male entered the bank, handed the teller a note. The note said that he had a gun and demanding all her money. So the teller gave the individual the money that she had, undisclosed amount at this time, and the lone male left the bank, headed west on Grand Avenue.
Northlanders were among more than 100 protesters exercising their right to speak for peace. Their nonviolent message called for an end to the Navy's Project Elf, a first-right communications trigger for nuclear-armed Trident submarines.
The Cold War is over, the money still comes. So we had Veterans for Peace, Grandmothers for Peace, Pax Christi people, Catholic worker people, people from Chicago, people from Canada. We just had a whole convergence today to say no to ELF.
Demonstrators gathered at one of ELF's transmitting stations in Clam Lake, where coded signals are sent to nuclear missile submarines at sea. Those opposed say ELF is the costliest and deadliest weapons system in history, and the past, not the present, is where protesters say ELF belongs.
It's a relic of the Cold War. It's a dinosaur of, Pentagon plans to launch and wage a full-scale nuclear attack on other countries with thermonuclear weapons.
Wisconsin Senator Russ Feingold has proposed a bill to put the plug on ELF's funding. Feingold says the project is an unnecessary frill in the post-Cold War era, and protesters believe the bill will pass.
We anticipate with enough attention brought to this facility by protests such as this, that eventually this place will be shut down and part of the nuclear weapons system will go the way of the dinosaur.
12 arrests were made for trespassing in what the Ashland County Sheriff's Department called a peaceful demonstration. Today's protesters say they are hoping for an end to what has become an annual event at Clam Lake and a return to the peaceful beauty they believe the Northland region symbolizes.
In her new book, When the Bow Breaks, Dr. Sylvia Ann Hewlett claims American children, rich and poor, are the victims of a stunning level of both public and private neglect. The doctor says high-pressure jobs and the necessity of two-parent incomes have created a dangerous time squeeze.
We're all working 6 hours more at our jobs than we were a decade ago. The number of moms at work has quadrupled for this generation. So we are dealing, I think, with new burdens, and we have to find new solutions.
Today's kids have seen a 40% drop in contact time with their parents. That time squeeze can result in behavioral problems at home and in school. However, that doesn't mean parents should quit their jobs.
There was a great study done in California recently which showed even in situations where both parents were at work, if you did work creatively on scheduling, those kids did feel quite differently about, themselves, about their ability to do well in school.
As these social workers found out today at the DEC, there are potential solutions to the time squeeze. They include the development of on-site daycare, job sharing, flexible time at work, and the use of social service programs already in place.
Our agency does not serve just people that are on AFDC or other kinds of public assistance. Certainly the majority of our social service clients actually come from families that are not receiving public assistance.
The glasses right now that people wear for safety, a lot of times people can't even tell they have safety glasses because they're very, very nice looking glasses. The quality of them is really nice. They have quite a nice assortment because they don't look like safety glasses, they look like streetwear glasses.
Most of the studies done on exercise have taken a look at the physical benefits, the way it strengthens the heart, prevents diseases, and generally just slows down the aging process. But will getting some exercise improve your mental function? Well, according to a new study, the answer is yes and no. Researchers at Washington University in St. Louis tested the mental function of 121 people over the age of 60. They then put some of the people in an exercise program and let the others pretty much stay away from exercise. And then, after 1 year, mental function was rechecked in both groups. Now, those who didn't exercise definitely lost some function, especially memory. But those who did work out, well, they didn't necessarily gain. Well, they didn't lose either.
Now, the group that was in the exercise program didn't deteriorate. They stayed the same. So although we didn't improve their memory, perhaps we kept them from experiencing the normal age-related decline that people have in memory function.
Another big plus was that the people in the exercise group suffered less of the depression that sometimes comes with getting older.
We found out that people felt much better about themselves. The morale was much better. If you can walk upstairs, if you can take your children to the zoo, your grandchildren to the zoo without getting totally worn out, you're going to feel better about yourself. The quality of your life is going to be better. You're going to have greater happiness.
The best news was that it didn't take much exercise to get these benefits, just something aerobic a few times every week. I'm Dr. Dave Nida for NBC News.
The program isn't about creating informants at all. It's about teaching kids how to say no to drugs, giving them the confidence, the ability, and the skills they'll need to do that.
I'm hoping that the general public will also view this as a community service, a basic community service, and will support it as well. Because everybody knows that they have an aunt or an uncle or a co-worker or friends that do use the bus for one reason or another. And it's an important service.
To be here today from a very key committee that deals with telephone regulation issues. And Senator Carl Cronin is from Minneapolis.
And it may not mean much to somebody else, but for us up here, and especially for myself, some of you are friends that I've known for years. Some of you are former students I had at Morgan Park or Stowe School. Some of you are neighbors. And it gets much closer and it hits harder.
Sherry Cadine was shot to death in the early morning hours of January 30th while working as a healthcare attendant at this private home in Duluth. The prosecution contends Freeman carefully planned her murder, from lining his car trunk with plastic to transport a body to wearing dark clothes so he would not be spotted. Freeman testified today he was in the Twin Cities that night, although he says he had planned to go to Duluth to pick up his children the next day for visitation. But after driving part way, he claims he had car trouble and had to turn around.
I've looked at it at every angle I possibly can, and I sincerely believe that the right thing has been done, that the city's taken the correct course of action. We have to forget politics, we have to forget what's popular, and we've got to be responsible.
Is the city prepared to instigate action that would put 300 people out of work? Is the mayor going to be able to have 300 people in the city of Duluth without employment? Is that how much they want to win this thing?
Last week, Fond du Lac Tribal Chair Sonny Peacock's frustration was clearly evident, fanned by the reservation's and city's inability to settle the question over profits from the Fond du Lac Casino.
If the city wants a war, they have a war.
Last month, the National Indian Gaming Commission ruled the tribal city agreement creating the casino and splitting its profits was against the law. The commission gave both sides 30 days to resolve the matter or face the possibility of closing Fond du Lac. Until today, it appeared the lack of negotiations would close one of the city's important employers.
And the National Indian Gaming Commission has offered to mediate. So we've agreed to go ahead and do that, and the band yesterday said they had agreed to do that, so I expect that that'll happen very shortly.
The Fond du Lac Economic Development Commission receives 50% of the casino profits for job creation. The band and city share the rest. A federal law created after that agreement was made now requires that at least 70% of gaming profits goes to the band.
We're not hard and fast on the distribution of the profits. The city gets 24.5%. And I've said all along that I think there can be some room on that. The biggest disagreement, I think, at least from our point of view, seems to be the disposition of that commission, whether or not that should exist or not.
What I hope to do is to encourage the students and the visitors to embark on a journey of discovery. About Malcolm, Martin, and me, a triumph widely known.
In other kinds of places. And about what happened to me as I did that. How appropriate is it for me to have that kind of humor?
I think our students, on the other hand, will have a better chance of choosing programs, and they'll be able to go to one spot and be able to have all the choices available to them without having to cut through all the red tape that we've got at this time.
Kind of activity. Gangs are not really new. I guess what's new recently are guns, which changes everything, brings everything to a new level.
And this high school principal should know. A few weeks ago, Tom Henning took a gun away from a student. And while we've all heard about the violence in schools at large cities, some may be surprised to know Henning is a principal in the rural community of Maple, Wisconsin. This is just one of many recent events fueling attention toward juvenile violence and gang activity in the Northland.
They get separated from everybody else, and this gang, like a group of kids, say, you know, you can come be with us, be a part of our group. So they just accept them, and that's the only people who want them to be with them.
But it looks as though Maple and other Wisconsin cities may soon be getting some help from the state. The Wisconsin Assembly has authorized $7 million for juvenile programs designed to discourage teenage violence. Superior Mayor Herb Bergson says that is a step in the right direction if the money is distributed evenly.
The money has to be made available to smaller communities, not just the larger cities in the state, but some of the smaller communities like Superior and like some of the rural areas even that have these gang violence problems.
Part of the solution seems to be communication. Tonight at 7, officials are holding a community meeting addressing juvenile crime and gangs in Superior at the Concordia Church. And in Maple tonight, community members there are also holding a meeting on gangs at Northwestern High School. And from all the communication that's been taking place recently about gang violence, at least one common theme seems to be apparent, that the problem is not just anybody's, but everybody's.
The community needs to work on this. It's not just a school problem. It's a community problem that spills into school.
In Superior, Stephanie Guadian, News 6.
Go through a system, we hook up a machine, run through a flush chemical treatment, helps clean out the system. We also take the antifreeze out, recycle it. So we get the rust contaminants out of the system. We top it back off with any extra new antifreeze that's needed. Make sure your tires have enough tread depth on them. Also to check for any irregular wear patterns such as cupping in the tires, edge wear in the tires. It's also a good idea, especially in the front-wheel drive cars, to make sure your better tires are in the front of the vehicle for winter driving. A lot of times in winter, especially in the colder weather, you find that the car's harder to turn over. Lighter weight oil, getting the electrical system checked out to make sure the battery is functioning properly and has enough cranking amps into it will prevent a lot of problems in the future.
Got 3 good, strong television stations here.
That's right, well, Maryport does.
It's because of this. I want to create opportunity for Minnesotans. And I talk to too many people in this state who don't feel much sense of opportunity and optimism in their lives. And if I couldn't do anything else as a U.S. Senator but to restore people's sense of opportunity, I'd feel good.
Authorities spent much of the day on foot and from the air, searching near 2 harbors for the body of 32-year-old Chris Thomason, but with no luck.
We started early this morning with the helicopter up in the areas where we had reason to believe that the body might be, and we come up empty-handed, and due to the weather, we've suspended our air search for the time being, and if we develop any more new leads, we'll continue.
Meanwhile, the BCA continues to investigate the waterfront restaurant for clues. According to a criminal complaint, that's where Thomason was last seen, with her boss, the restaurant's owner, 46-year-old Art Nordahl. Nordahl's son told police the suspect and Thomason were here drinking Monday night, when Thomason died after falling and injuring her head. Nordahl's son told police his father then panicked, put her body in his pickup truck, and disposed of it in the woods. But he can't remember where, saying it was dark and he was drunk. Now authorities are in the dark as to whether they're even searching the right area.
Kind of like looking for a needle in a haystack. We got 2,300 square miles of Lake County where she could be.
Authorities have not ruled out foul play. Tonight, Nordahl is in the Carleton County Jail charged with illegally moving a body. But authorities admit without that crucial piece of evidence, they're going to have a hard time making any charges stick. In 2 Harbors, Amy Rutledge, News 6.
And I came here today not to overpromise at all.
Many state and Iron Range officials have resigned themselves to the fact that National Steel may never reopen. And for steelworkers, the process of starting over began today.
I'm frightened, I'm angry, but I am optimistic that things will work out.
Social service agencies and the Minnesota Office of Job Training is trying to make that difficult transition easier by offering classroom and on-the-job training to steelworkers.
We will be aggressively trying to get our dislocated workers from this project into the occupations that are existent currently. The other individuals are probably going to be looking at some training, either short-term training or long-term training, and once they do that, they become more employable.
But with an extremely tight job market and limited high-paying jobs on the Iron Range, experts say workers can't afford to wait to begin their job search. Joe Erickson has put in 20 years at National. He says he plans to go back to school.
Maybe there's some hope for funding for school. I feel better about going back to school now.
The upheaval from losing the 700 jobs at National is also affecting families. Harlan Tardy's agency provides food and medical assistance and even counseling to help cushion the blow.
That the whole family is affected. The children, the spouses, the whole family is affected, and their mood swings, their concern and their unknowing of what's going to happen to them, having to leave their neighborhood potentially. All the conversation that goes around the coffee table filters down to these children, and they bring it to school.
All of National's union workers will be briefed on today's information in November. In the meantime, while the future without National Steel may be an intimidating one at the moment, many workers here are grateful it's one they don't have to face alone.
I've got the support of my family. My wife's been great, and I've got some real good friends out there that are very supportive, and we've got a good bonding up here on the range. The people stick together.
In Hibbing, Amy Rutledge, News 6.
Communication by television is going to be the way children learn in the next 10 years. And it's nice to know that UW Superior is going to be the first campus to show the way.
Over 700 Northlanders from all walks of life spent the day learning how to connect kids and community. Experts from around the state were on hand to teach skills for developing youth leadership at today's Kids Plus conference. Organizers say there's a need to give young people alternative ways of spending their time and get them involved in their community.
They want to be a part of their community, but they don't know how, and they don't know what is available, so we need to communicate what is out there, what's going on that kids can be involved in.
Young people are facing the biggest issues of our society firsthand every day. Students and their teachers here could learn things like language and skills needed to resolve differences without violence. The conference's keynote speaker says the most important message is getting along with one another.
But the bottom line is our conduct and how we behave with each other. We will tear the threads away from this rich fabric of diversity if we don't learn how to live with each other.
A group of about 20 teenagers called Schizos highlighted today's conference, performing a series of skits acting out such teen problems as pregnancy, AIDS, and date rape. The group says that as they reach out to kids, the kids easily and readily reach back.
And it's also, it's from their peers.
Yeah,
it's
like
not some 40-year-old guy sitting up going, don't drive drunk. It's us, and we care about this. We care about other kids our age and what they're doing.
And it's everywhere. Like, nowhere in America can you avoid the problems that we're telling people about, and they're right. I mean, it's not, we're not preaching it to them, we're just telling it to them like it is.
Organizers say dealing with problems at a young age can carry us over the rough spots that can fill a lifetime. Today's turnout is an indication that despite numerous problems, there are plenty of people, young and old, looking for solutions. In Duluth, Derek Hines, News 6.
And then you just to get some video of stuff around here, so yeah, can relax now. Your words aren't.
Single payer offers far better cost containment. It offers universal coverage for everybody, not just for seniors or for the people who do not now have insurance.
That obviously can be very difficult. We have looked at it in this market before.
Now there's an example of leading and suggestive questions. These are some of the questions. To suck his dick, didn't he? Mommy told you.
I think the day is gone where we feel that we have safety in a little rural community, and it's just the big cities that have to face these issues.
When we do even the preparation, don't do it alone, just for that very reason. Even something is disclosed and is not previously known before, it's your report on it, which means we're going to be.
I try to speak out for the constituents and the taxpayers. And I feel that once councilors are elected, they almost become a club. And I do a lot of research, and it is an informed vote.
A grassroots campaign when you cannot afford television.
I think that the West End is neglected when it comes to job creation. I want to be an outspoken advocate for job creation in and around the West End. We need a grocery store. We need some job creation here.
We have to do our whole stock. We're going to be working on them all day today and tomorrow, and hopefully we have over 1,000 watches in stock here. And hopefully we'll get them all done, but probably not today.
Member of the town of Whitewood, where we are located right now, and there's also things laid out by the permit required. So cooperative, I think, is good citizens. From all indications, this will be a financially sound investment of public money, that we will get our money back within a short period of time, relatively short period of time, and that it should be basically profitable from the very beginning.
Superior officials say their message to juveniles is clear. Mariner Mall. Police believe an argument between Montgomery and another Superior intended victim grabbed the barrel of the gun, directing the single shot to a sign on the wall. Theft and harassment. He is a suspect in an October 18th shooting incident at the Mariner Mall. Police believe an argument between Montgomery and another Superior teen led to the firing of a sawed-off 20-gauge shotgun. The intended victim
DAIP, I mean, they keep good statistics, and they've got the history, and they've got a training program that will benefit to somebody.
The danger is for us and for the public, and for other people who have been victims, is when someone lies about being a victim, then other people don't perhaps get the support when they've been victimized, or are maybe less reluctant to report their victimization, fearing that people won't believe them.
Our standard says that at least 70% of all expenses should go towards programmatic activities, and not more than 30% should go towards fundraising, administrative, general costs.
So they do have a complaint with the rate structure that the City Council approved. We don't believe they've got a complaint against us because our rate increase was legitimate, but
It wouldn't be their responsibility.
I really would be pretty sure it's not the full amount.
What are they mad about? Why won't they pay? Don't know. They're having some problem over, they haven't paid them, Ready Mix hasn't paid.
Oh, they haven't.
Express themselves and have a place for creative activity. I'm very excited about our expansion. Deal to us. We're really proud. I want to thank our board for the courage to go ahead with this project. Believe me, it's a need out there. Children need to have a place to go.
We were not aware that they were working there. We were not aware that chemicals, residual or otherwise, and it would appear in this instance it was residual chemicals left there, not a gross amount, but a small amount. Enough, apparently, though, to ignite an explosion.
I was having lunch at the Methodist Student Union with a group of college students. I was a senior that year, and when we received word, the shock and the grief that just overwhelmed us.
there's not a lot of going on. So year-round school, it gives us an advantage a couple of ways. First, it eliminates that lengthy summer vacation where kids are gone for 3 months. Unless you come from a real enriching home, that's a tough time academically. The second thing it does is it spreads out the vacation during the school year, but it allows us to bring the kids back who don't meet necessary competencies.
I think it would be difficult for her at this point in time in terms of her ability to completely understand what is said to her and then respond to it accurately the way you would want her to.
Society's acceptance of drinking and driving has been reduced over the last 20 years. And much of that has to do with Mothers Against Drunk Driving, getting it out into the public's awareness level and showing the cost and the tragedies involved with drinking and driving.
Such is the case regarding the average driver. But what about the person who makes their living driving an 18-wheeler, the professional driver? A recent statewide study shows that about 5% of big rig truckers are under the influence of drugs and 0.5% alcohol, not necessarily at an illegal level. The study randomly tested 6,000 truckers in a year's time. Performed mainly by urine analysis, the tests were done on a volunteer basis. Anonymity was maintained by assigning a number to those tested, who could call later for test results without giving their names. Out of the 6,000 tested, 4.7 showed positive for some kind of drug use. 3.5% indicated marijuana, 0.5% for cocaine, and 1/5% showed use of opiates and amphetamines. 0.5% showed traces of alcohol.
That's probably about right. There's some bad eggs in every bushel, you know. I don't use it, and I'm not afraid to be tested.
Minnesota was one of 4 states which participated in the federally funded program. New Jersey, Nebraska, and Utah, their data is still being gathered. The final findings of this first-time study will be released in February. In Duluth, Chip Wallace, News 6.
With over 18 inches of fresh snow on the ground, one would think state snowmobile trails would be open and full of winter sports enthusiasts. The trails were full last weekend, but they weren't open.
A lot of our trails aren't open yet because the landowners' permits we have aren't valid until December 1st.
The state of Minnesota has miles of trails that spread across both public and private land. The agreement the state has with private landowners that allows snowmobile traffic on designated trails runs from December 1st through April 1st. so the amount of snowfall has no bearing on when trails open. State trails don't officially open until December 1st, yet many eager snowmobilers have been out on most of them already. DNR officials are stressing that the trails are closed for a reason, and although they appear safe, many of them are not.
There's a lot of work to do. There might be deadfalls. There might be other hazards. It's just like any other sport. You should check ahead. Just don't go riding without checking ahead or knowing where you're going.
24-year-old Jerry Sanborn was killed on a state trail last week when he collided into a gate that was stretched across a trail just south of Hibbing. Dick Johnson is a member of the Greenway Snowmobile Club, the organization responsible for maintaining that trail. He doesn't feel the gate should be opened until the trail is.
We opened them early, we would be not staying to what we have consented with the different parties. So thusly, it could jeopardize the program.
Most state trails will open this weekend, but to be sure, you should check with the DNR. In Grand Rapids, Ted Rowlands, News 6.
Because it's a statement about how I feel concerning the relationship of the people to their elected leaders. I want to be their elected leader, and I want them to know that I'll never forget who I'm working for. And that's why I'm bringing it up right now. The people are the boss in this system.
See you a little later, Sheriff. Have a good trip. You bet.
I argued today that I don't think probable cause to hold him exists yet. Now, it may down the line, they may demonstrate evidence that he's responsible for this.
With the success of the Brady bill, purchasing a handgun requires a 5-day waiting period while authorities perform a background check. Now the authors of the bill are taking aim at assault rifles, leaving many Northland guns enthusiasts mad.
There shouldn't be any controls. Any gun, if it's misused, you jump on the person, put them in jail.
Paul Blumenson owns the Arrowhead Survival Shop. He specializes in assault rifles. If the Brady people pass the legislation that stops the manufacturing and sale of assault rifles, he's out of business.
Yeah, I'll be out of business. That's okay. If they make it outlaw me selling stuff, I still have possession of it. And they're going to have to pay me to get this stuff.
Defining assault rifle will certainly be one of the biggest issues the crime bill will have to deal with. The industry says an assault rifle has a pistol grip, has a removable magazine, and fires about a medium-sized caliber round. And there's also a lever that will switch it back and forth from fully to semi-automatic, none of which this or any of these rifles are capable of doing.
Automatic firearms have been regulated since 1934, probably the most regulated of any of the firearms. Very strict to own and to buy.
The regulations include an FBI registration, fingerprints and photos, and an approval from the county sheriff or police chief. The Brady bill goes into effect in 3 months. In Duluth, Chip Wallace, News 6.
Well, we were just sliding and playing in this one fort that my friend made, and we heard a plane that was he was landing, and we heard like a car go by. It sounded like a car, like a crash on dirt, sliding on metal. And then we just didn't think anything of it, and then we kept on sliding and playing. And then this morning we heard on the news that there was a plane crash half a mile away from our house.
Wow.
And
that was pretty.
that's about it.
What did you think when you heard that this morning?
It was just unexpected.
Are kids talking about it at school today?
Yeah.
Did your teacher talk to you at all about it, or?
Not yet, no.
No. What are the other kids saying?
They were just saying about how many people were on board and what happened.
Pretty weird, huh?
Yeah.
But did you think at the time that what you were hearing was a plane, or?
Kinda, yeah. I didn't think anything of it.
So have you heard noises from planes flying over before?
Yeah.
They fly pretty close to the house?
Yeah, because the runway's not too far from our house.
Okay. All right.
Could you hear anything like the propellers or anything like that, or any specific sounds?
Yeah, we could hear like turbines on jets, and then rocks like sounding in them when it hit, like grinding rocks, and then it just stopped. And then we just kept on sliding.
By the lighting of the Advent candle, the coming of the light of Christ into our world. And so this evening we give thanks that the light of Christ...
medical people, people from Northwest. We come together as family, as friends, acquaintances, neighbors, co-workers, people of love and people of prayer, because we are helpless and we want in some way to express our love and our concern for the bereaved. We just want to assure you once again, those of you who are present, that in this time of darkness and trial, that you are not alone.
Left it on last night, all night, and I will continue to leave it on in memory of those people. I mean, there's been deaths in town. You know, you can read the obits every day, and there's somebody that you know, it's a small, close-knit town. But this is terrible. Absolutely terrible.
Over 400 friends, family, and business associates filled the First Assembly of God Church this morning to pay their final respects to Bill Valeri, husband, father, and community leader.
This man had a number of years on me, but you know, he treated me with respect. He treated me as an equal.
Bill knew this day would eventually come, so he left a final message to his friends and family in his Bible.
Don't grieve for me,
For now, I'm free. I'm following the path God has laid, you see.
The obituary and personal thoughts came from a fishing buddy.
I don't think we ever caught more than one fish in the time we were ever out. Bill was big and strong, but he was gentle and tender in his strength.
Bill was also a businessman. He founded Urethane Systems Incorporated and Industrial Rubber Applicators. Besides serving on the board of directors here at the Mesabi Regional Medical Center, Bill helped start the Alzheimer's unit. Now a memorial fund in his name has been set up to see that the job gets done.
I think maybe what I'll miss most is Bill was an encourager. Bill was the type of person who had joy and went around encouraging and exhorting people.
Valery was returning from a Wisconsin business trip last Wednesday. He is the third victim of Flight 5719 to be buried in Maple Hill Cemetery. Craig Sturl and Robert Taberzi's services were held on Saturday. Born, raised, and educated in Minnesota, Valery is survived by his wife, Norma, 5 daughters, 3 sons, 2 brothers, 4 sisters, and his parents. In Hibbing, Chip Wallace, News 6.
The eye is busy looking at the floor. You feel needed.
The virus was confirmed here at this virology lab at St. Mary's Medical Center in Duluth. Biologists isolated a type A influenza virus this week known as the Beijing flu. 4 other cases have been documented in the Twin Cities, and while 6 Minnesota cases don't make an epidemic, experts say the disease is very contagious and is easily spread.
Oh, we're expecting more. There should be quite a few more cases, I would assume, up here. This is actually kind of early for this region up here to have flu being isolated.
Type A influenza can be deadly, particularly to people with upper respiratory or heart problems, or to the elderly and the very young. For these vulnerable groups, flu ranks in the top 10 most prevalent causes of death. For others, it can make them extremely sick, with temperatures up to 104 degrees for 7 to 10 days.
But the influenza is a highly contagious illness transmitted both by ear droplets, but primarily perhaps by body contacts, such as handshakes, probably being the most significant mode of transmission.
The Northland victims are women in their mid-30s. Both have been isolated in their homes where they are receiving treatment. Health officials recommend that anyone over 60 or with heart or lung problems should get a flu shot. They also suggest anyone working in the healthcare fields or in a position where they deal extensively with the public, such as store clerks, should be immunized. Shots cost about $15 and are generally partially reimbursable through medical insurance.
The doctors stress this type of influenza is not something to take lightly. If you feel you may have been exposed or already have the virus, see your doctor immediately. In Duluth, Barbara Riles, News 6.
That, and I misspoke, and I apologize for it. The reality is that when the proposal was split into 2 parts, I had assumed that they severed that relationship. That is not correct. What's in the contract is that they shall build in Hibbing, Duluth, and it specifies employment levels.
The people that start on first usually take ice chisel and check the depth, and as they walk, they keep checking the depth and find out if it's safe or not.
The chapel hadn't been that full since, I guess, Jimmy Carter had been there. And HIV, or the guy with AIDS, or, you know, the guy who HIV is definitely, and HIV is the virus that causes. And what else? Vaginal secretions. I hope that at St. Scholastica, my coming here will help affect you, because now all of you know somebody with HIV. "25-year-old Jamie Jardine hid behind his jacket as he was escorted from his jail cell to Commissioner William Hammond's courtroom this morning. He is accused of sexually assaulting and shooting a 22-year-old woman who worked at Katie's massage parlor in Superior last month.
She does have moderate difficulty with comprehending what she hears.
Pathologist Lynette Carlson phoned in her testimony. She says the victim has problems understanding and is emotionally fragile. That prompted this unusual request.
The state's going to move that the court close the courtroom.
Only immediate family was allowed to stay. 1 hour later, Jardine, along with public defender Pat O'Neill, reappeared. You have anything to say?
No, nothing.
At this point?
Nothing.
Mr. O'Neill, can you tell me what line of defense you'll be taking?
No.
Later, the public defender said he had no idea Jardine's mother hired a private investigator.
I've had no contact with the investigator whatsoever.
When asked about his client's opinion on today's testimony,
I can't comment on that.
the DA said the victim's testimony was clear and intelligent. She testified that Jardine was a repeat customer, that he had a gun, handcuffed her, and raped her. Jardine told officials they had consensual sex.
Her testimony was that she did not consent.
That it was forced sex, that it was rape?
That she didn't consent to any of the intercourse, and that it happened after he had handcuffed her and pointed a gun at her.
Jardine will be arraigned next Wednesday. At that time, he will enter his plea. Court is set to convene at 1:15. Judge Michael Lucci will preside. In Superior, Chip Wallace, News 6.
Within this area.
No, I'm talking about jobs that pay wages that will support families. That is my bottom line. We have seen in Minnesota in the last decade the number of children growing up in poverty double. And we have seen the number of single parents who work full-time year-round jobs who are living in poverty triple.
I think that's it.
It's not that.
Good, good, good.
But I can't get out the door because Dad.
Thank
delivering boxes of toys for cash.
After the deal was made, police moved in and arrested the 61-year-old Minneapolis man. He is said to have volunteered for Toys for Tots for several years. From local businesses, he'd been seen taking box loads into his house as well as the pawn shop.
Give me a beer.
We have been seeing families since November 1st. They've been making application for the assistance that they need, and then based on the size of the family, they get a beautiful food basket that they'll go away with today, as well as the opportunity to shop for toys for their children.
And what that represents is the debt service for the new jail, which the state is requiring us to build, as well as debt service for the solid waste facility that we have up to Virginia.
We've gone to the parents and some of the youth groups, and the people are very supportive of it. And we hope to make this a place where there's not going to be any type of harassment or abuse on any degree.
This could be